everybody. Hopefully you can see me. Got to get everything organized here. Hopefully I'll be able to have comments tonight too. Oh, got a few people come in. Hi everybody. Hi Colleen. Hi Teresa. Make sure you say something when you come in so that I know you can hear me all right. Things have been going a little better lately, so. Hi Marcia. Hi Deb. How was everybody tonight? Oh, Judy's here. Hi Garnet. Hi Denise. Everybody's hearing me okay? Awesome. Good. I've been working in my sewing room all day. I've been trying to get a bunch of little projects done. So I've been trying to finish up like Ginger's Kitchen, and I've been working on. I had to kind of pre-sew some of the stuff for tonight, and I worked on the pumpkin spice Kimberbell event stuff. I got all those three. I got 3 projects done, and then there's like a bonus CD. I have to make some stuff, so I'll have to come up with some things to sew on. Did that today. So I've been working on all kinds of stuff. Started last night. So how's everybody doing today? Looks like there's a bunch of you here. Oh my goodness. Hi Jan. Hi Pat. Hi Mitzi. Yes, I have been very busy, Lynn. Sometimes I get on a roll and I just get a lot done, but I worked all day yesterday too. And then I came home last night and worked last night, and then I worked until about 11 o'clock last night, and then I got up this morning and started working. So I feel like I've gotten a lot done this weekend. Trying to stay warm. Yeah, it is pretty cool. I just stepped outside and I'm like, holy cow, it feels like winter outside because it is only about 40 degrees. I was surprised because I had to clean the cat pans, took the cat litter out. You wish you had my ambition? Well, sometimes, Jan, I don't have a choice. It has to be done, so I kind of have it all planned out. So, hi, Deb. Okay, so I'll show you, the one thing I wanted to show you tonight is I'm getting Ginger's Kitchen just about done, and it's very cute. I've got it all quilted, so it's all quilted. And I got all the embellishments on except for the yo-yos, those 3 yo-yos there. I'm not good at yo-yos, so I ordered a yo-yo maker. Got all the little ribbons on, sewed all the little buttons on. There's like little rickrack that you make bows out of. And then you make, and I quilted the ends. So I quilted the inside with, with Design Center. And then I quilted the edges. I don't know if you can see it or not. If I hold this back. Can you see? I just quilted the edges with a serpentine. And I just did that on the sewing machine. And then you have to put the organza on and the rickrack. There's big rickrack. And then this side had a bunch of buttons and stuff. And then look at the little girl. You have to make her little dress out of the organza. So she has a little dress. And I sewed all the buttons on with the sewing machine. It was kind of fun. So I got all the little buttons sewn on. I think you use you use all but one button in the little pack. It's one of those, it's the We Wish You a Merry Christmas pack. So I think I'm actually going to put the other button up here on the top of the gingerbread house, because I just thought, well, that seems silly. You're not using one button, so I think I'm going to put the button on the gingerbread house. So I'll use all the buttons. But I'm waiting for the yo-yo maker to come, so my yo-yos might turn out round. I have a hard time with yo-yos. And then you put like little bows on those little stems there. That it's like lollipops. So that's the last of the pieces for Ginger's Kitchen, and then I'll put the back on. Not quite there yet. This one I quilted with just regular backing, because it's just got regular like muslin on the back. So this one's going to be a pillow. And then the next one I'll probably make into a wall hanging. So I'll put some pretty fabric on the back. So that's what I've been working on the last couple days, trying to get that quilted so we can get started on that in November. And thank you, Denise, for giving an idea of where you can get a kit for the Did you sew them or glue them on? Oh, the buttons, I sewed them on with the sewing machine. What is a yo-yo? There, you take a round piece of fabric, and then you have to like hand stitch all the way around it, and then you gather it up, and it makes into a little circle with a gathered center. And I'm not very good at them, so I've ordered the yo-yo makers so that I maybe can actually get them round. I made yo-yos years and years ago when I was a kid, and I never did have very good luck with them. So I'll put the yo-yos on when the yo-yo maker gets here. Hopefully it'll be this week. So I'll get it done this week. And I am going to do the backing like we did the boo pillow, you know, with the two ends. I like that two-ended. Denise, did you like that too? That two-ended flip on the pillow. That's so much easier to get the pillow form in. They're very difficult to get in when you're stuffing it from one side. So I think I'm going to make the back like we did the boo pillow. Oh, did you order your kit? Good, good. Yeah, Denise found a kit, and it's on the group. She found a place that has kits that they've cut, and it has like the backing, I think she said too. So great, great. I mean, you can. I'm so sorry I couldn't get them, everybody. I tried. I've been told this about E.E. Schenck, and Maywood is the name of the pattern, the fabric company. You kind of keep on them, and often things don't come in like they say. So I'm glad I called this week to find out, because I had to cancel the order because it won't come in until sometime towards the end of November now, which to me is just way too late. So yeah, I think that we should use I think that's a great way to do the backs, Denise, because they are so much easier to get in, because I really have always struggled getting these big pillows in. Oh, and then I'll show you the other one I've been working on. This one's going to be a wall hanging though. This is the one of the bench pillows actually from, and I haven't got the stars. I need stars on the top of the trees yet. I got the light bulbs on, and then I need some little berries on the wreaths and doorknobs on the doors. But this is from Jingle All the Way. This is in the back of Jingle All the Way, and it's supposed to be a bench pillow, but I put pretty fabric on the back, and I'm just going to make this into a wall hanging. So, but I have to do a little bit more embellishments. I made all those light bulbs last night too, and you make them with the Mylar and the tulle. So I got those all on there today, glued them on, and then put the string through, and then I will finish this one up too. So I've had this one made for a while, but just haven't finished it. So I've been working on all kinds of little things today. Okay, so tonight, let's see. So tonight we're going to finish up with the Grateful Heart, and I'm going to show you two ways that I finished this. I finished one of them by quilting it. So I kind of like the quilted method myself the best. I think it looks the most finished this way. It does not need to be quilted though. The way she does it in the instructions is using a fusing method, but I did fuse it differently because I had a little trouble with the front puckering. So this is my quilted one, and see, I just quilted this with the sewing machine. We're going to quilt this in Design Center tonight, and I quilted this with a sewing machine, okay? And then the backing is quilted through the back then. I like the idea of having it quilted through the back, okay? So I imagine I'm going to make some more of these, and I think the rest of these I'm going to do with this method with the quilting. I just like it. To me, it just is a little bit more done this way. You can still use the fusible fleece or the fusible batting, or you can just use with this one, with the quilting, you can just use plain old batting. I actually do have fusible batting, so I did fuse it just to make it stay put for me a little easier. So, but we'll talk about that a little bit too as we get going. So this is my quilted one, and then we can also do it fused. See if I can get a hold of it here. So this is the fused one, and I thought it looks really nice. It just doesn't have any quilting in it. I think it looks really nice though. And I did do it a little differently because I had a little trouble with puckering on the quilted part, this part. Because she told me to fuse it to the fusel fleece to the back of this, and every time I do that I always get puckering, so it did pucker. This one is not puckered because I fused it to the backing. And I also learned, we're going to learn how to make this little sleeve, which is really cool. I've never done that before, so I like that little, that was a little new little thing for me. So anyway, this is the fused one. Now we're going to do them, I'm going to do them in the opposite order this time. I'm going to make this one, this one's going to be, tonight is going to be my quilted one, and I'm going to make the other one fused, so I have one of each. So okay, so I'm going to kind of talk through some of this. I had to do some pre-sewing because there's a lot to finish in them. It takes a little while. It's not hard, but it just takes a little while. Let me turn the camera around here. And the first thing I want to talk about, I think you all got the instructions. We talked about this a little bit about, you know, what you had to cut and everything, and that was all on page 1. But the bottom of page 1 tells how to make the sleeves. You have to do a little prep work to the sleeve. You cut the sleeve piece, let's see, where is the measurement here? 6 1/4 by 12 inches. And then what you do is you take, I just took a ruler and measured in from the square edge 3/4 of an inch on each side. And then I took my ruler and drew to the bottom corner, because you want to make it like angled. Okay, so it shows you this, but it's on the top of page 2. And then what I did is I just turned it back 1/4 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch and made a nice little hem. So that makes your the edges of your sleeve, and you can see that it's a little bit narrower on the one side. It just reduces some bulk is what she did. And she explains that, and it's towards the bottom of page 1. So that's kind of the first thing you have to do, is get your sleeves ready to be put on. And I just turned it back, like I said, just turned it back on the edges and stitch it so that it's nice and finished on the edges. Okay, so I have one sleeve for each one of these, and that's on page 1. I don't know why she didn't put that with the rest of the instructions for finishing, but it was on the first page with the cutting instructions. Okay. And then, of course, we have, you know, a top and a bottom. So we're going to go to page 5 now. And the first thing you have to do, let me grab a hold of one of these here just a second. I've got these kind of pinned and ready to go here. Okay. So the first thing we had to do is we have to take and trim this center section. After you get it out of the embroidery machine, it needs to be trimmed to a certain size. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to measure up from this satin stitch on each end, up and down. You're going to measure 7/8 of an inch and trim it off from this satin stitch edging. And it tells you right on the instructions to do that. Okay, that's the first instruction. Now the one thing that I do is when I do my trimming like this, I leave all of the stabilizer on. So like this is the one that I'm going to fuse. So I actually left all the stabilizer on, and this is the tacky stabilizer I used for the fused version, and I just left the stabilizer on. I always like to trim with the stabilizer on because they seem to lay better for me. So when I go to trim it, I don't have like a wavy edge for the trimming. Okay, so I did leave the stabilizer on both of these to trim it, but this one, since I'm fusing it, I left all the stabilizer on, and it will stay in my design. Okay, so the top and the bottom from the satin stitches were 7/8 of an inch, and then you want to go an inch from these edges right here. From the edges of these satin edges, you want to measure out an inch and trim it off there. Okay, so it ends up being about it's about 12 inches wide, I think, total. And so you do an inch on each side. Be a little careful when you're doing that you keep your measurements straight and keep it square on the edges. You can do that with your ruler and keep a straight edge after you've trimmed the top and the bottom. when you do these, make sure that you're staying nice and square, okay? So there's an inch from here to here on each side, all right? Now, when I did the other one, this is the one I'm going to quilt. Okay, so this is the one I'm going to quilt. Let me pull this back a little bit. What I did with this one is I did leave the stabilizer in it while I trimmed it, and then I pulled the stabilizer out so that when I go to quilt it, it will stay. It'll be less stiff for quilting. So I did take the stabilizer out, and this is the one I did not use the sticky stabilizer for. Remember, I used a plain stabilizer with some glue stick to put this to the hoop. So that's what I did with this one, and I wanted to take all the stabilizer out so that it's softer when I go to quilt it. It'll look nicer, okay? So this one here that I'm going to fuse has all of the stabilizer. I left it in. It's just stuck to the back of the fabric, and I tried taking it out with my first one, so I've actually sewn this out about 5 times. And I took it out, and it was just totally wrinkled after I took it out, and I thought that's not going to work, so I've been leaving it in for the other ones, and it seems to work real nice. Okay, so this is the tacky stabilizer in this one, and this one I removed because I'm going to quilt it. Okay? All right, so you have to do your trimming then. So you're going to trim on your ends, trim on the top, and then we need to put, there's two, on the first page we had to cut a piece that goes at the top here and at the bottom. So the bottom one's just a little bit wider, as you can see. I think one's 3.5 and one's 4.5, and they are a little wide. So what I do, she tells you to actually cut them, the measurement. So what I usually do is I just sew them on, and I iron it down. The seam is going this way. I ironed it, and then I trimmed it with my ruler on the side so everything matched. I don't usually trim it first and then sew it on. I usually trim it after I sew. I'm lazy, I guess, but that's how I do it. So I did this one with the, this is the one I'm going to fuse, and this is the one, I also did it to this one, and this is the one that I'm going to quilt tonight. Okay? So the shorter one goes up in the top, the 3.5 inch one, and then the 4.5 inch one goes at the bottom. Okay, and you use a 1/2 inch seam allowance, just so you know. So she did use a 1/2 inch seam allowance instead of a 1/4 inch seam allowance to put those two, the top and the bottom on, and that's stated in the on page 5 in the instructions. I had it highlighted so I wouldn't forget, because I'm used to doing a 1/4 inch all the time. Okay, you want to press the seams this direction, so press the seams towards the borders. Okay, all right. Then, depending on what you're going to do, like with this one here, I'm going to fuse this one. So if you're going to do the fused version of this without quilting, you want to then mark, you're going to put this trim on. Now I had some pre-purchased trim for this one. I had this gold trim, and she wants you to measure 3/8 of an inch from the seam, you know, where the background and the borders meet, 3/8 of an inch down, and mark a line. So I just took my water-soluble pen and marked a line 3/8 of an inch down here, okay? And what worked well for me with this trim so that it wouldn't scoot on me, this is my trim, so you can see what it was. It was just this gold trim. I think I got this at Walmart probably. Yeah, Simplicity, so I probably got it at Walmart. And what I did then is I took my water-soluble pen. That's what I'm going to do now. So it depends on which version you're doing, Julie. If you're going to do the fused version like she does in the instructions, you iron these, or you sew these on, and then you're going to put your strip on before you put the backing on. Okay? Because you don't want to see the line of this through your backing. So you do this first, okay? If you're doing the quilted version, I sewed my trim on last. So if you look at mine, I actually trimmed it. I actually did the trim. after I put it, you can see where my trim line is right here. I actually did it after I quilted it. On this one I sewed it on afterwards. But this one I sewed it just on the back, on the front. It's just on the front part. Let me unpin this so you can see. She doesn't want you to sew it through the backing. Okay? So you see I just sewed this through here. Okay? And this is before you sew anything else together. But this is the fused version. All right, so let me get this pinned back down so it won't scoot on me. Okay. All right, so I did that first. So I marked my 3/8 inch down, and what I did, so this wouldn't move around, get a little closer here. I took some of that Collins, you know, the double sticky Collins tape that we used for starting over. I ran it right along that line, okay, and then I stuck this down. I stuck my trim down to it so that it would hold it nice and firmly for me, and then I stitched it down. So this worked really good. She doesn't say anything about this, but I have a hard time with trim like this. It likes to scooch around, and so I use some of this Collins tape to hold it down for me. So there is a little piece of Collins tape underneath there. You really can't see it. It's very clear, so you really can't see it, okay? And I did that with both of these up here. So this is my fused version. I'm not going to, we're not going to do the accent pieces on the quilted version until the end. But what I did with this one, I had used a different type of trim. When I did this before, and I'm just going to do it the same way, this one here, I just made my own trim, and she said you can do that, and I just made trim out of some of the fabric that I wanted to use for the binding, and I have a bias tape maker that's 1/4 inch, and I just made 1/4 inch trim with my fabric that matched my binding, okay? So what I did with that, I'm kind of lazy, and I didn't feel like doing twin needle, so I made my bias tape. So here's my bias tape, and I'm going to put this on at the end before I put the binding on. But what I did is I made my bias tape and I put Steam-A-Seam 2 on it, and I'm just going to fuse it to the top, and that's what I did with the other one. I didn't sew through it. If you want to, you can take your twin needle and sew along the edges. I use a number, let's see, for the 1/4 inch it'd be a number 4 twin needle, and then you can sew along the edge and it would hit both sides with a 1/4 inch. But I just fused mine, and it's going to stay on just fine. So that's my this was the pre-purchase trim, and this is I made my trim. Okay, so there's 2 different ways you can do the trim, but that one we're going to do at the end. So when I did this trim on this one, you know, when I did the one that I quilted, I put my trim on at the end after I had everything else kind of done. I put the trim on. I had to put the trim on before I did the little sleeve, because you can see the sleeve is right here and the trim is right, I don't know if you can see if I get it close enough, the trim's right here. So I put it on before I did the final step of putting this sleeve on. But I'll show you how to do the sleeve too. Yes, Lynn, you have converted me to Steam-A-Seam. I was just lazy and I didn't want to have to I don't like to twin needle very well. So I just didn't feel like doing it. So I just used the Steam-A-Seam, and it worked really well. It's not going anywhere, and it goes on real straight that way. So okay, so that's the trim. So if you're fusing, so let's talk about the fused one first, so we don't get confused, right? This one, I sewed my top and my bottom on, pressed it down, and then I sewed my trim on to just the front, all right? Then she tells you to lay the fleece down, and what I did differently than what's in the instructions is she tells you to lay the fleece down with the fusible against the front. And I did not have good luck with that. Let me show you the one I did that way. And you can see how wrinkled it is. And she also tells you to spritz it, which as soon as I read that, I thought, okay, I'm going to read the directions. I'm going to do what she tells me. And as soon as I spritzed it, it really got wrinkly. Okay? So I did not do that. So what I have done here, I have it laying on the fleece, but what I did before I laid this part down on the fleece is I fused my fleece to the backing. So I turned it over, and the fleece is actually adhered to this backing fabric so that it is adhered. And I've got actually fusible batting. I have a bolt of fusible batting, and the fusible fleece will work too. This fusible batting is a little bit thicker. So that is fused to the backing, not this front. Because as soon as I touched this with an iron, it wrinkled. Okay? So this is the fused one. Let's just talk about this one for a little bit. Get these out of the way so I won't lose them. All right, so then she says to lay this onto the backing, but see, my batting is attached to the backing. Then what you want to do is pin all the way around. So get it all kind of lined up and pin it all the way around. And you can see I've got the little pins over here, okay? Then we need to make the little chevron, because there's a little chevron at the bottom. Did I use linen? No, this is just a cotton fabric, Jan. It's got a little bit of a speckle in it, so I did not use linen. Okay? So what she does then is we're going to make the chevron. You know, at the bottom of the little thing, there's this little point, okay? So to make that, you want to, I just used my water-soluble marker, and you want to measure down from this where the two colors meet, measure down 3 inches. So I put a little mark right here. Let me see if I can go a little closer. I put a little mark right here, okay? You want to, on both sides. So here's my second one over here. And then you want to find the center of the bottom. And I put a mark there. All right. Then I took my ruler with my marker, and I lined up those lines. And I drew that line in, and it makes my chevron. Okay, so I went this side, and I went this side, like that. All right, so that is the mark. And I actually did use the marking pen that I normally don't use. This is the blue. You know, I have these, I love these Dritz ones, but I don't normally use the blue end. The blue end, you actually have to physically put water on it to get rid of it. And sometimes it still doesn't come off. And then this one, the purple, is usually air soluble. But this blue one, we're not going to see this because I'm actually going to cut along this line with the next instructions. But I just needed something to sew against. Okay, so we're going to sew against that, and then we will trim with the scissors on that line. Okay. So that was the bottom of page 5. So this is the fused version. We're following her directions with the exception of I fused my fusible fleece to the backing. All right, so let's look at page 6 and see what she says to do. All right, so she says with the walking foot to use a walking foot and baste 1/4 inch inside the chevron. So in other words, this is our cutting line, and we're gonna baste along in here 1/4 inch. And then we're going to go all the way around the edge of the design with a scant 1/4 inch. And being the lazy person that I am, I did not use, if you second here, I'm going to have to change my foot, aren't I? Had my embroidery foot on. Let me change it real quick here for you. If I hang on to my nickel. And then we'll stitch around this. I was embroidering and sewing today, so I've had this foot on and off about 6 times, I think. Okay. Thread my needle again. And I've got some, this is just my quilting thread. I'm not going to probably put my other thread back in here. This will be just around the edge so no one's going to see it. I have some tan thread. I could put my tan thread back in, but this will work fine. Okay, so what we want to do then is we want to go around this hole, and we're going to use this as the edge. Like, pretend this is your edge, okay? And we're going to go around this, all the way around this with a scant 1/4 inch. I am going to use my 1/4 inch piecing stitch on my machine, which is on the Q tab, and it's Q02. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck that line or the edge of it underneath the foot so that it is a scant 1/4 inch. I'm going to plug my foot controller back in. Okay. So I'm going to tuck that under there, and we're just going to stitch around this to hold everything together. Now again, this is the fused version that I'm doing. And yes, you could put a walking foot on here. Our machines really feed really well, so I often don't put a walking foot on for stuff like this. Got to get my pins out of here. Second here. Looks like I need to take another stitch. There we go. And I'm tucking the fabric just under the foot, and then it makes a nice scant 1/4 inch. So we're going to go all the way around the edge of this. I have a harder time with the walking foot getting a good scant 1/4 inch than I do with my regular foot, and the machine really feeds really well. And this is not. I had it pinned, and it's not going to scoot much. But you want it to be scant, because remember, we're also going to put we're going to put our binding on this too. So we kind of want it to be scant. There we go. Looks good. Around the other side here. And this is just going to hold everything together so that we can work with it and do a couple of other things here. Oops, second, let me put my flipper down there. I had to leave the embroidery unit on tonight because I knew I had to embroider too, so. Okay, turn the other corner. Should put my pivot feature, I must turn it off. I usually have it on all the time. Go around the other side. And I'm just tucking this under my foot so that it's a scant 1/4 inch. Okay. Now when we get down to the bottom here, remember we're actually using that line that we drew as our drawing line, because we're going to cut that, we're going to trim that chevron off at the bottom. I got a little close there, but it should be fine. So I just got that line just tucked under my foot. Okay, and there's about the center, about right there. And then we'll turn this last corner, and hopefully we'll meet up at the end with any luck. All right. So I have sewn all the way around this, and now trying to make sure I'm following the directions in the order so I don't get it. And then we're going to trim this chevron in here, okay? I want to read to make sure I didn't miss a step. And trim the wall hanging, or turn the wall hanging right side up and put it on there. Trim it around, fold. Okay, so now we're ready to do the sleeve. So what I did with this, so I'm going to go ahead and take all these pins out now so I don't stab myself. We have to put the backing on. I'm going to go ahead and trim this chevron into the bottom though. I think I just used as I remember, I just used my scissors. You can use your rotary cutter. I think I just trimmed along the line with my scissors. Either way works, whichever works for you. Okay, so we'll trim this in here. Sometimes I have a harder time if I trim with a rotary cutter, so sometimes I just do this with the scissors. Okay, so there's that side. And now we have that nice chevron at the bottom of our wall hanging. And the next step is something that I've never done. I've never made I've never made one of those sleeves before. I thought it was really cool. And you want to, part of the stitching in the ditch, we're also going to stitch in the ditch here, but we have to have the little sleeve on the back first, because when we do that, it's going to hold part of that sleeve down so that it comes, and then it comes up to the raw edges. So I am going to go take this over to my cutting table. Actually, I might just do it with my scissors. It's faster. I am going to go ahead and trim along the edges of this so that I get that backing off of there all the way around. So I think I'm just going to use my scissors just for quickness, and trim the batting off, and then that's the rest of the backing. If I need to retrim a little bit before I put the binding on, I'll go back with the rotary cutter and clean it up a little bit, but this is just faster than me having to get up tonight. Because my fabric is pretty straight, so I think it'll be fine. Go around here, and let's get this one. But I did find that if I just fuse the fusible fleece or the fusible batting to the backing fabric instead of the front, it really took care of the wrinkles. And this is a much faster way to finish these. You know, if you don't like to quilt, and if you don't really want to, this is still a very beautiful way to finish these, and it's much easier. Okay, now the other thing that we want to do then, so what we have to do at this point is to turn it over on the back. So I'm going to turn it upside down. And this is where we need to put on our hanging sleeve. So the first thing we have to do is find about the center of the hanging sleeve. So I'm just going to hold this, and I'll put a little pin in there so I can find it. And then I'm going to find the center of my top of my wall hanging here. So we're going to put the sleeve on the top. I don't want to bend anything else, so I just kind of squeezed it a little bit so I could find the center. And then I'm going to lay the skinnier end of my sleeve right sides together. So I've got the wrong side up, and I'm going to pin that to my wall hanging. So pin it up here, and then then what we're going to do now is we're going to stitch in the ditch along where the top and the bottom meet. But I'm going to go ahead and put a little pin down here just to make sure that this doesn't flip over on me when I turn this up. Because we want to leave this open because it's going to flip up this way, but we have to stitch in the ditch first. I've never made one of these. I thought it was so neat. Okay, so then what you're going to do is we are going to stitch in this stitch right along the edge to finish the quilting, to hold them together. And I'm going to go ahead and go to Q01 and put my needle in the center. And I usually stitch in the ditch with a J-foot. There is a stitch in the ditch foot. There's a couple of them. I have a tendency to use my J-foot. And if you give me a second, I am going to put my glasses on so I can see better. And we're going to stitch through that. Right now I'm stitching through that sleeve also on the back. And yes, you can put your walking foot on here if it works better with your machine. My machine feeds really well, so I don't get a lot of puckering with this machine. So I don't always put a walking foot on unless I'm doing something much thicker. This is not that thick. Okay, so I stitched in the ditch, tie off on the end, and I'm going to stitch on the other end as well. Okay, we'll turn it over. And I think I've still got my stitch length at 2.5. It could be at 3, but this is not super thick batting, so it should be fine. Oops, I think I just unthreaded my needle though. Try that again. Yep, I did. We'll just thread it again. Well, helps Jan if you hit the right button. It's only on live TV, right, guys? Okay. I like to hit the cutter button instead of my threader button. I don't know why. I've done that for years. Ever since they started doing the threader buttons. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch in the ditch on the other end here. Now this time, you know, we're not going through with the sleeve, it's just through the backing. And I'm just stitching right along where the pretty fabric and the white fabric meet. Just to hold everything together. Second here, I'm getting stuck. There we go. And we'll tie off at the other end. Okay. And then, gotta trim a couple threads here. Looks pretty good. Then, you're going to turn it back over and see where we sewed through the little sleeve there. Now, we're going to take these pins off. And I'm going to flip this up. Whoops, got to take the pins up though. And I'm going to flip this up and look, see, they meet at the top. What a deal, huh? And there's your sleeve. I just thought that was so cool. I had never made one of these before. Now I could put one on a quilt. I just thought that was neat. And there's my sleeve. And now at this point, if you want to, you could stitch that closed as well. But at this point, what I'm ready to do is I'm ready to put my binding on. And that will be my fused wall hanging with the fused fleece on the back. So I'm ready to do the quilting. I'm ready to do the binding on this one. So this one's done, except for the binding. What do you think? And there's my sleeve. So once I put the binding on, see that sleeve will all be closed, and it'll run along your little bar, depending on what you have. I got these all up on the website, so if you want the hanging bar, like the little hanging bar like this, I've got some up there. I couldn't get any more of these little curlicue ones, but I could get some heart ones. They're really cute. So those are up on the website. And then you can also get the stand, if you like the stand that I have here. You can get that one also. So I've got that one up here behind. You can see the stand sitting back here. And there's a little, I always pull this thing off, so there's this little curlicue at the top. It goes on it like that. So there's both of those are up on the website. So it's 12 by 14, and then this is a 12-inch hanger. So I kind of like the wall hang. I kind of like the hanger for the wall. Yes, Teresa, I do. I've done binding several times with the with different classes. So if you go look at some of the my little settee pillows, you can review the binding. But when I do binding by machine, what you're going to do is you're going to put the binding on the back of the wall hanging. You're going to sew it on the back, and then you're going to flip it over and zigzag it on the front. Okay. How do you make the chevron? Oh, with the chevron corner, Colleen, you measure down with the batting still on. You measure down from this junction right here, 3 inches, and made a mark on both sides, and then you found the center point in the middle. Okay? Or do you mean how to make the chevron corner with the binding? It's actually really easy because, let me see if I can get this close enough. The chevron is so gentle that you can basically just do a gentle curve and it still looks like a chevron. Because mine, and then the corners here are just slightly less than 90 degrees. But this is very easy. This is a very gentle chevron. Okay. Yeah, it's really fun to do binding with this machine. I am getting better at it, and I don't know if you can see my back. I am really getting better at it. So I've done it several times with the other pillows. So the trick is when you pull your binding across, sew it on the back, and when you sew it, when you bring it to the front, the trick is do all your corners. So I like clip up to the corners, and then I get my corner the way I want it, and then I put a pin through my corners, and then I pull the binding around to just on the inside of the other, just right to the line or just inside of the stitching line. And then you want to zigzag one stitch on the left of the binding and one stitch in the binding, because then it shows up nice on the back too. So that's kind of my trick. I'm getting better at it. I'm not perfect at it, but for this kind of stuff, it's so much easier to put binding on with the machine. Now, if you need me to do a little video, would you like me to do a little video of me putting the binding on these? I mean, I can do that. When I have put them on, I'll just turn the camera on. Would you like that? Because I could just put the binding on and just, record myself doing it. Because I didn't know that, I knew we wouldn't have time to do that tonight, too. So we've put binding on several times, but I'd be happy to do that while I'm doing this. So, okay. So this one is just about done. This one, all I need to do is put the binding on, okay? This is my fused version. Okay, I'll do that, Teresa. I'll just video myself putting the binding on so you can see it, okay? All right, I will do that. And so this one then is at the point of being done. So here's my sleeve. Got my sleeve all on there. Got all the trimming. And I do need to do a little bit of, you can see I got a little crooked with my scissors here. Yes, you need to press it too. Yes, Jan, you need to press it. So I'll video that too. When you sew it on the back, before you bring it around, you want to open it up and press it really well with an iron so that it's very flat. Yep. But with this one, we'll be okay since we're pressing on the back and it won't make everything wrinkly. So, okay. So here's our fused version. And this is very acceptable. I think that looks good. It isn't wrinkly. It looks good on the front. So now let's do a little quilting. So I did this one in a little different way. I had to quilt part of it. Oh, I got to change my foot again. Here we go. That's about all I get done in a day. I spend a lot of time sewing, and I sew and embroider, and I switch the feet back and forth and back and forth. All right, yeah, I'll go ahead and make a video, everybody. Okay. I'll probably do it tomorrow because I was going to try to finish these tomorrow. All right. Get some of this stuff out of my way here. All right, so let's put the embroidery foot back on, and we're going to quilt this. So the first thing I have to do to quilt this, and we've done some of this quilting before. Get my scissors out of the way so I don't knock them off. I have this, okay, so technically I have this, obviously I have this hooped, and this is not normally the way I would hoop something. I like to have it completely in the hoop. This is a 9.5 by 14 hoop because this piece is like 12 inches long, so it won't fit in an 8 by 12. It's too long, and it's about 8 inches wide. So I put it in a 9.5 by 14. This is my snap hoop. And the other thing I did is I didn't have enough fabric to make the fabric big enough to hoop it in the hoop, which I would recommend if you've got enough fabric. It's better to have it in the hoop if you can. But to get around it, what I did, there's a little bit of edging here. So what I did, and I don't know if you can see it, I taped the top with some of the Kimberbell tape. I taped it down to the batting that's on the edge so that it won't catch, because I am going to actually make my quilting in about 1/4 of an inch. So we should be okay not to catch this, but I just taped it down on both sides to keep me from catching it. Okay, because we're just going to be careful and bring the quilting in a little bit because there's going to be binding on there anyway. All right, so I do have this in the hoop, and there was enough to hoop that I could do the center. the ends I just sewed with, and I can do that. We'll do this and I'll show you what I did. But I just used, I like the serpentine stitch. So I just took the serpentine stitch and ran it along the edge of my foot, and it just kept going. And I just sewed a serpentine on the top and the bottom, and did all the quilting that way on the bottom. But I also, you notice that I have not trimmed my chevron yet on this one. See, it's just straight. So I did not trim the chevron until I quilted it. So I quilted it first. Okay, so let's do some quilting. So this is the other option. I think I'll probably make the rest of these this way, just because I like the quilted look, but the fused look looks just fine. Okay, I just like to quilt. All right, so the first thing we have to do is we have to make a stamp. Now, remember, this design did have that placement line in it. So I actually did open that design up in my software, and I removed that placement line that we had at the beginning of it, just so that it was just the design. So I can make a good stamp and not have that line down the middle of it. Okay, so I did alter that design slightly to get a good stamp. So when I go in here to get it, I'll show you, it's on my stick. Gotta find it, Grateful Heart. And it's in the design, oh, it's right here. So this one here, I resaved it so that I took that little placement line that was right in the middle of the design out, so that it would go around the letters better. Okay, so I did open that up in my PEP software, removed that, and just resaved it as another design. So we're going to choose that one. And I need to make a stamp first, because I want to just have the stippling go around the design. So I'm going to go ahead and set this. And when I get to my editing screen here, I'm going to hit Edit, maybe. And then I'm going to go down here where the stamp key is. It's the flower that looks like an outline. And I'm going to tell it to be as close as I can get it. So it's on 0. I wanted to look real quickly what this, on the new machine, on the new Luminaire, there's a new upgrade that lets you also trace inside and outside. This one may not work because of these things in the center here. So let's just turn this inside on and see now, can you see the lines in here? There's times when I would want to do this because you can get more stippling around things, but this one, I don't want it around this area in the pumpkin. So I'm going to actually turn that off so you see the difference. So it won't stipple inside that pumpkin. If you wanted to quilt around an applique object that was not an embroidery design, how would you? Okay, so to do that, Denise, you just have to open it up in Design Center, and you can bring in even a picture, and you can just draw around it with a rough drawing. You would actually have to do a little drawing with it, Denise. So if you scan it into the machine and bring it up as a backdrop in the software, you can just do just a rough drawing with the drawing tool around it, and that's how you would do it. And then you still have to make your square. That's the size of your square, like your block. Okay. So yes, you can still do it that way. I had somebody in the other day that we were playing around with that. So she had a quilt that was like one of those pinwheel quilts that has the three-dimensional pinwheels, and we had to figure out how to stipple around those pinwheels without hitting them. So that's how we did it. We scanned it in and made a rough drawing is how we did it. So all right, so I've got my stamp here. I think I'm pretty happy with this, and I'm going to hit memory because that's going to save it then into Design Center. Okay, now I'm going to hit the little house button up here. Probably can't see it. It's all right. And hit OK. And then I'm going to go back to embroidery. I'm sorry. We're going to go to Design Center. And I need to measure my block. So remember, those edges, we got to be awful careful because we don't want the foot to go off the edges of this thing since it's not hooped all the way in the hoop. So I'm going to measure this and take a 1/2 inch off. And it is 12 1/4. And so I'm going to take a 1/2 inch off, so it's going to be 11 3/4 by just 8. Okay, so we need to make our rectangle. So I'm going to take my shape tool and I'm going to take my outline, and then I'm going to size it. So I want it, whoops, I'm still in millimeters, so let's go back to settings and we'll go back to inches. It's on page 9 on the Luminaire. It's 8 on the Dream Machines, I think. And we're going to make it 11 3/4 inches long. And I think I can actually do that full, so 11.75. I think that we can use that full measurement. And then it needs to be 8 inches wide. So we're going to pull it out a little bit so that it's 8 inches wide. And since this is, you know, hooped with the length up and down, that's the way I'm making my square. And now this one I am going to make it just a little shy of the 8. Whoops, we'll get it here yet. About 7.95 or 6 probably. Okay, the length should be okay. We could go a little bit shorter, but we should be all right with the edges because I took the 1/2 inch off before I made the measurement. Okay, so I'm going to click OK. I think I'm happy with the size, and now I need to bring in my stamp. Lynn, you're going to need the 9x14 because this is 8 inches wide, and it's actually it's 11 3/4. It might actually just barely fit, but you'd have to be super careful to get it. And actually, it still wouldn't because 8 inches is too wide for the 8 inch hoop. You only got about 7 3/4, so you do need the 9x14. Okay, so I've got my block here. Now I got to get my stamp. I'm going to go back and get the stamp in the same place. It's up here underneath the flower. And then here's my stamp for Grateful Heart. I'm going to click OK. You can see I've been quilting all the blocks from Ginger's Kitchen here too. So those stamps, they eventually go away. After you can only have like 20 in there, so they kind of slowly go away as you add more stamps. So okay, so here is my block, and I've got it centered, and it looks like it's pretty well centered in my fabric, so I think we're going to be pretty good. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to make this into a stipple. I just wanted a stipple, so I'm going to click my properties for my fills, and I'm going to choose the stipple. Now I have been noticing the red will work really well on the white, but yellow seems to be a good color to choose for a lot of the darker fabrics because the yellow really shows up. So I am going to choose red for this one because it works well on the white. So I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to get the little paint pot because we have to fill this. And then I'm going to touch in between my stamp and the square. Now the other thing you can do, I have figured out that if you don't want to have to get rid of that scan if you're scanning, you can actually go up to, this is the line property here, and I can touch that and I can have a no sew line. So this, in other words, this line will not sew. It's just a placement holder. I can click OK, and I can do the same thing with the lines. I can get my little paint pot and I can touch the outline, and it will actually make it, and I don't know if you can see it. Let me see if I can make it bigger on the screen. You might be able to see it. See if I can get an outline. You might be able to see it. It kind of turns it like, looks like little ants. I don't know that you can really see it on the screen very well. But then it doesn't sew. It's just going to sew the stippling. Especially if you have to scan, then you don't have to get rid of the scan after each time. But it's kind of hard to hit it, so I don't always do that. But I've been playing with it a little bit, and I've been doing okay with it. So, all right, so I've got my stippling in here. I changed my outline to a no-sew line. It's just a placement line. And then I'm going to click Next. At this point, I would like to change my stippling a little bit. I think I'd like it to be maybe just a little bit bigger, but I need my millimeters back again. So I'm going to go back to my settings. I'm going to go back to page 9 and go back to millimeters for a little bit. And I want my stitch length just a little bit longer. So let's go up to 2.5. And then I think I want my stippling, instead of at 5, let's make it just a little bit bigger, and let's make it at 6 millimeters. So it's not quite so tight. And click OK. And then it will renegotiate. Oh, that looks better. So then I won't have quite so much stippling. And then this little button here is, I just usually leave it default. It's kind of a an edging thing. I just usually leave it at default. It seems to work fine. And then on the luminaires, we have the option of having a single line stipple or a triple line stipple. And I want to leave it at single because I don't like that heavier stipple. Sometimes I like the heavier line, but not in this case. Okay, so I think I'm going to pretty happy with that. And let's go ahead and hit set. And OK. And if you notice, now since I turned off that outline, see there's only just the stippling. It's just a little hard to click it and get it to be right. So sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't. It's actually faster without doing it, but I just wanted to show you that you could turn off that outline so that it doesn't sew, especially if you have to do the scanning, because then you don't have to go get rid of that backdrop scan every time. Okay? All right, so I think I'm pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and hit embroidery. So I'm going to try something tonight. I'm going to show you. I've gotten to the point that I don't normally scan. For those of you who have the Dream Machines, you have to scan, or the Stellaires, you have to scan. But I've kind of gotten to the point that on my machine, I've kind of stopped scanning. What I do is I take my design, and see, I can kind of move it so that the design is approximately in the center of my design to get it about where I want it. I got rid of the outline. It's still there. You can't get rid of it, Jan. You have to leave it there as a placement holder. So it holds the square there, but it isn't going to sew. It was like a no sew line. Okay. So I kind of moved this about where I think I needed it because I looked at my machine and I wanted to get it about in the center. So this is about the center where I have it. Okay, and I just moved the design on the screen. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn on my camera. So for those of you who scan, you can always do the scan first and then move the design. But I am going to look down here, and I think you can see the red. Can you see the red? Let's move this up and see how we are up here at the top. Oops, a second here, make sure I don't hit my camera. Can you see the red okay? Yes, the other line has to be removed in software. The placement line of the design itself, I removed in the software, Jan. Okay, so see, you can see that I'm way high with my design. I need to bring my design back down again. So I'm going to move my design down. And I think I also need to go over. So I wasn't very close, but I was close enough. Okay, that looks better. I need to come down a little bit. I think you can actually see my red tonight, can't you? Is everybody seeing the stippling tonight? Okay, so let's go over this way and see how we did. I actually got this hoop fairly straight, but yeah, it's a little bit crooked, so I think we're going to have to do a little bit of a rotate. I'm rotating here because I think I got it kind of crooked, evidently. That looks better. I think I need to come up a little bit. So I can see where my tape is, and I'm going to try to keep the stippling just about where the tape is, because I don't want to really sew through it if I don't have to. But I don't want to go off the edge of that fabric either. Since there's no fabric out here, you also have to be awful careful with this. Yeah, because you can actually see the red tonight. And I'm going to pull this over, see how we did over here. So I think I'm kind of off here. It looks like I almost need to make it wider. I'm not sure. I might actually need to make this a little bit wider. I know I had a little trouble getting this lined up because it was very close. Because of this line here, it was very close and it was a little hard to get it lined up. But actually it looks pretty decent now. I'm going to come down a little bit further, I think. That looks better. So then I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to pull my camera down so I can look at some more stuff down in here. That looks pretty good. I think I got it straight now. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to look at the other bottom ends. And again, I want to make sure that I'm staying on my fabric since this is not hooped, okay? Second, I can't see what Jan was saying. It looks like it is stitching on the... Oh, I don't know if it will or not. Jan, sometimes it looks like it's going to, but then it doesn't. So I haven't figured that out yet, but there must be something. That looks pretty good. I think it actually could come this way just a little bit yet. That looks better. I'll look at the other end again. But I think I got it straight now. I had to rotate it a little bit. I must have this hooped a little crooked. It looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm glad you can see the red tonight. It must be dark enough that you can see it. That's awesome. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So let me look at the other side here one more time. I like to look at the corners. Yeah, I think that's going to be okay. It looks like, yeah, it might go on to the S just a little bit, Jan, but I don't think it's too bad. I think it'll be all right. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I think I'm happy with this. Got my thread in there, and I'm going to just check to make sure I have enough bobbin thread before we start this. Because with my luck, it'll run out of bobbin thread. Yeah, I think it'll make it. We'll see. You might get to watch me wind a bobbin too. All right, so let's see what happens here. I'll pull this camera back a little bit so that it won't hit it. And when you're doing this and it's not hooped at the bottom and the top, you do kind of want to watch this and that's why I taped this, because I didn't want it to catch. This is not the best way to do this. I hardly had any fabric left, and I just didn't have enough fabric to have enough to go on the backing. So I would probably tell you, if you could, just to hoop it down here. But it usually does pretty well, as long as it's hooped snugly and I don't go off the edges. I can usually get by doing this, because I'm not going to quilt the ends this way. I am just going to do those in the sewing machine. Looks pretty good. I really like quilting this way. I mean, these machines, all of these machines are so cool that we can do this. I really feel like I can quilt anything now. And I can custom quilt, so I don't have to take it to someone to have it custom quilted. I really feel like I kind of feel liberated after getting this machine. I've learned a lot about it, and it is pretty awesome. For those of you who have just gotten new machines, how are you doing? Is everybody enjoying the machines? There's been a bunch of you have just got new machines recently. And it is pretty cool how we can do all this cool quilting. Especially this little stuff. Now the other night I did have a little problem when I was working on Ginger's kitchen. And I had to put the darning foot on, and I had to actually do a little teeny bit of stitching myself, and I kind of surprised myself. It looks pretty good. I don't think you can even tell that I did a little bit of the stippling myself. So now this gold, was that the new gold that I got from Dime. And just so you know, Tim has ordered all of the colors of the Dime metallic, for those of you who have been asking. So we should have it. I don't know exactly when it's going to come in, but it's been ordered. So I'll have some for both stores. And there's 16 colors. And I've been making some lace. I've made a little Christmas tree with it. Don't feel intimidated, Jan. Just get it out and start using it. Yeah, I do sometimes, Denise. I guess when I do the embroidery, in this case, yes, you can use the other decorative fills. That is fine. I like the embroidery to be the focus here and not this quilting. So I do, and on my Ginger's Kitchen, I did use the decorative fills on some of the blocks, so I can show you that quickly when we get done here. But I like the stippling because it kind of like blends in. So it depends on what you want to be the focus of your block. Like if you want the quilting to be the focus, then use the decorative fills. If you want the design to be the focus, use the stippling because I think it kind of blends in more. And it's just personal preference, whatever you like. And with this one, I liked the stippling because it was just more subtle, and you can really see the design. So that's stippling between the little sashing strip and the design, or the decorative fabric. So I'll show you on Ginger's Kitchen. Yes, I used a variety. Whoops, guess what? Of course, we're going to run out of bobbin thread. Let's see if it'll go a little further. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. I think I'll have to wind a bobbin, guys. All right, you know how it goes. You can never quite make it, can you? So we'll just wind a bobbin quick. But it might have just made it. I had to sew a little bit, though, that's why. Okay, you want to be real careful pulling these out so you don't move anything. Okay, no, they probably wouldn't have made it. I do have quite a bit on there, though, but I don't think it would have made it. We'll just wind some more. So you get to see me do all this stuff, right? Because, you know, it happens to everybody. You know, you just about get done, and then you have to wind a bobbin just to finish it. I do like this bobbin winder, so this gives me a chance to talk about the bobbin winder. Because on this bobbin winder, there's, you know, you can adjust how much bobbin you put on it, and I just love that because it allows me to do like a quarter of a bobbin, so I don't have to do a full bobbin. And I'm going to wind about a quarter of a bobbin just because I don't need to. I've got most of the quilting done with this thread right now, so, but that'll get me enough to get done here. And that was something that oh yeah, Colleen, before we end, I'll show you. I made lace with the Dime metallic. Oh my gosh, I have never been able to put metallic thread in my bobbin before, and I made a lace Christmas tree and some lace ornaments. And I've always wanted to make lace stuff with, you know, with metallic and never been able to. All right, so put this back in. I think I'm going to back up just to 10 stitches maybe. We'll tie it off. Whoops, helps Jan if you rethread the machine. See, I do this all the time too. That I don't rethread the machine. How many people do that when they wind a bobbin? I can't be the only one. Okay. Now we'll tie it off since there's thread on both sides. Alright. Then we can finish up. It was just about done too. It only had just a few stitches left. Just like right around this little area right here. I think it maybe has to go up the other side a little ways. But actually it looks pretty good. Yeah, because I'll do a little bit of the serpentine so you can see how I did that too. But I did do the serpentine before I did the trimming because it worked so much easier, and then I could just do all the chevron at the bottom. Just about done, I think. All right. We have quilted the center. Oh, move the back camera back, please. I'm sorry. Yep, it's just done. Oh, there must be a little teeny piece in the S. I noticed there was a couple of little teeny pieces that were in there. Yeah, there was just a teeny little piece in the S, evidently. There we go. That must be it. There we go. Oops. There must have been a little thing that stuck. Sometimes it'll stick these little pieces of thread in just little odd places, but I just let it sew it out because you normally can't even see them. You can't see that one either. All right. And there is the center. So we've got it quilted. Take this off. And there is the center of our quilted wall hanging. What do you think? You like that? I like quilting it this way. What speed do you put it on when you were doing this? Oh, my machine's usually somewhere around 800, Judy. Isn't that cute? So there's the center. Now when I did the edges, what I did, whoops, second here, got some thread in the way. I'm going to put my regular foot back on again. So you've gotten to see me change the foot 5 times today. I knew that I was going to be doing this back and forth tonight because of all the different sewing and different changing. So let's put the foot back on here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the serpentine, and I'll just show you how I did the edges, and I won't finish the whole thing, but at least you can see how I did it. Oh, you can do it, Lynn. I have confidence in you. Okay, so let's go to sewing again, and I'm going to go down to the serpentine stitch on the Q tab. I usually use the one on the Q tab, and I want it to be 7 wide. I made it as wide as I could, and then I made mine about 1.2. Seemed like a good length. And it tells you to use the end foot, but you know, I like the J foot. I've never really liked using the end foot very much for this because the rails sometimes don't feed as well. So what I did then is I just ran my foot. So I did it this way. So I was running the side of my foot on, I started out by running the side of my foot along where, you know, the designs matched, or where they met. And just tied off on the side, the edge here. And then I just started doing my serpentine stitches. Whoops. Guess I have my foot controller hooked up. There we go. And I just started doing my serpentine stitches. And I made it fairly wide. I like to do simple quilting. You know, I don't like real fancy quilting on some of the stuff, and I just thought I love serpentine. I've always liked the serpentine. Makes it, and if it's not straight, no one knows. And then what I did, the next step, I laid the side of my foot again, right along the biggest, the serpentine kind of goes like this, so the little hump on the ends, I just lined it up and put my foot against that and did another row. And I just kept going until I got all the rows done. I'm just watching the little edges where they come out. And you could make it longer if you wanted to. think I used 1.2. I've used 1.4. Just depends on how big you want it to be. I'm using kind of a neutral thread, so you can't really even see it. All right, so there's another line, and I'll just keep going until I'm done. Okay, and that's what I did with my other one, is I just kept going until I was done. So this is the one I did, and I just kept going along the ends until I was done, and I had about maybe 10 rows or so, 8 maybe. And then, just like we did on the other one, I measured down from here the 3 inches, and I measured over to the center, and I drew in my line to make my chevron after I had it all quilted though. Okay, and I quilted the top too. So I did all the quilting on this one before I put the little sleeve on. So I did all the quilting first, and then, yeah, you could use your laser light, Denise, that's fine. I just used the edge of my foot and I just ran, you know, like, you could also get out the little guide, you know, like you could put your walking foot on, use the little guide, and that works too. Either way, yeah. I just watched where the little humps are, and I just ran it along there. It's so there's not much to quilt here, so it didn't take that long to do it that way. So either way, yeah, use your laser light. That's another good idea. Okay, so then what I did is I quilted both the top and the bottom, and then I also did the little stitch in the ditch thing. I actually stitched in the ditch after I had it all quilted, because I had to do that to do my just like we did with the sleeve. I needed to stitch in this ditch right here. So I just quilted the top and the bottom, and then I put the sleeve on and stitched in the ditch. And then I trimmed, I measured down and trimmed my chevron in, just like I did on the other one. Okay? And then I put my binding on. So yeah, so this one I'll finish it up. I just did the rest of the quilting with my sewing machine. You can do a decorative stitch. You could probably quilt this. If you had a bigger backing, I would have probably quilted it in the machine, but I just didn't have that much of this fabric, so I didn't have enough to make a bigger backing. So the backing is the size that Janine asked me to make it, so that's why I'm doing it with the sewing machine. Okay, so I'll put pictures up when I get both of these done, and then I'll make a little video of me putting the binding on, okay? But I think you understand how to finish this now after you get past this. We're going to finish it just like we did this one. But I'm going to do the quilting at the top and the bottom first on the sewing machine. Then I'm going to put my sleeve on the back, stitch in the ditch, and put the sleeve up. And then I need to cut my little chevron in the bottom, just like we did on the other one, okay? And so they'll both have the chevron like this one. All right, so does everybody think they know how to finish up their Grateful Hearts? I wanted to show you my lace from that I've been working on with the metallic thread. A second. And then Denise's question about the decorative stitches and the stippling. Yes, here is Ginger's kitchen, and I don't know if you can see. So I used both. I used decorative fills in the plain blocks. I used stippling in the applique and piece blocks because I wanted the block to be the focus instead of the quilting. So then, like some of these bigger ones, like see, I did several different patterns in this, and I did a different pattern in this one here. Okay, so what I did is I picked a pattern for each size block. So I have like 3 or 4 different patterns, but I have a tendency to put the decorative fills in the plain blocks so that the plain blocks aren't so plain. And then I put the stippling in the applique and in the piece blocks so that the block is more prominent. Okay, so that's what I like. Yeah, did you do the different fills? Yeah, Marianne said she did the different fills in the Halloween. Yes. So then, yes, bring up the Grateful Heart design in your software and just remove the first alignment stitch and take that out and then resave it. Yes. And then this one I was actually pretty proud of myself because when I did my little girl here, it didn't get very close to her, and so I actually had to stipple a whole line in here by myself. I did it all by myself with the foot, because I needed another little line, and I just couldn't get it to come up right in the, I don't know why, but it just wouldn't. So what I did 6, Denise. That's kind of a nice medium, and it's not a real big design. You know, if it's bigger, I actually use a lot bigger stippling, but most of these blocks are about, you know, like 4 by 6, 6 by 8. I usually use about a 6 so that it's not so tight, or it's not so loose. And then, like when I do big blocks, I'll actually do them a lot looser than that. I've even used like 9, 7, 8, and 9 to make it more loose. So anyway, yes, I do use the different decorative stitches. It just depends on what I'm doing. And this one had a lot of plain blocks, so I used decorative stitches in a lot of the blocks. So when we go to quilt this one, I'll show you that. So, okay? Yes, I did the entire block. You could do it that way, but I like to I just put stippling in it. Can you see the stippling in the pinwheel blocks? I did the little ones like that too. See, there's some little pinwheel blocks too. Yep. So you could have done it each separate one. You could have done them each separately by drawing the triangles in. But I just did a stipple over the whole thing. Okay. So let's see. Oh, and I wanted to show you my lace. Let me show you my metallic lace. I was pretty impressed by this stuff. So here is my little tree. I made this little lace tree. This is one from the OESD Christmas Village, and that's all that green metallic thread. Isn't that awesome? I just thought it turned out really great. And that's green metallic, and then I made some snowflakes. And these are embroidery library, so they're rather dense. And the thread, I think, broke one time in 3 ornaments, and I had it in the bobbin for both of these. I don't know that I ever broke a thread on the tree. I might have broken one thread. And then these, I think I broke one thread in these three ornaments. So I thought they turned out really good. I've always wanted to do stuff like this. So anyway, that is the new metallic thread, and there's 16 colors. There's a whole bunch of really pretty colors, so I'm anxious to get it. So I don't know exactly when it'll be, so it should be pretty soon because I ordered it on Friday. But so the things from Dime have been a little slow coming, so hopefully it'll be in the next week or two that we'll have it. So, okay. And it's not as expensive. You get 1,000 meters, and I think it's going to be $13 or $14.99 a spool. And you get 1,000 meters instead of only 800 like you do on the Floriani. And the Floriani's $20, so it is going to be less. And you can put it in the bobbin. This has all been in the bobbin, so. Anyway, I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be really cool. It's very soft thread. You know, it feels like regular thread. It doesn't feel like metallic. And when you use it, it's amazing. So anyway, I was pretty happy to make these. These were fun. So I've been working this weekend on all kinds of little samples. All right. So does everybody know now how to finish their Grateful Heart? How many people are doing are going to do the fused, or is everybody going to do the quilted version? I like the fused version too. It looks just fine. So I have 2 of each. I have 2 fused ones and 2 quilted ones. But I do like the quilted one. I think it turned out good. Okay. So, are there any other questions? This was a fun class tonight. We got to do a whole bunch of different things, didn't we? And you got to see me take my foot on and off the machine a lot. So, but the quilting for you. Yeah, I like the quilted ones. And then there's a whole bunch more of these, just so you know. Janine has, there's a winter, autumn, spring, and summer. And then she has a birthday one. And she has this new Grateful Heart. And I think there's a birthday one. Oh, and then there's 3 Christmas ones. It's called Most Wonderful Time of the Year, I think is what she calls it. And then she has like an inspirational sayings one. So there's a whole bunch of these that are all the same size. So I thought I might try to do some of the other ones. You quilted one with one of the Kimberbell ones. Cool, Colleen. Yeah, I haven't tried all of those yet. So That's cool. Oh, you have the Hello Winter. Okay, cool. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ones, and they're all up on the website. So if anybody wants any, and then she has actually some that are really big, like they're like Denise. Did you see Denise's the welcome sign? I actually ordered that, Denise, because I thought it was cool. She has a whole series of those long ones too. They're like I think they're around 28 or 36 inches long. So I'm anxious to try some of those too. I like the quilted one. Okay, cool. Yeah, I like the quilted one too. That's kind of the, I think that's probably the way I'll do these. And I did use the fusible batting just because it just held everything together and I could just pin less. I'm going to go ahead and get these finished, and then I will make a little video of me putting the binding on for you so you can see me doing the binding. 14 by 33. Yeah, I knew they were close to being 36 inches long, but she has a whole series of those, and then there's a whole series of table runners as well. So I've got a lot of them up on the website, not all of them, but I've been trying to get most of them up on the website, so I've been putting them up. And then she's got a new series that fit in that 6 by 12 frame that are like the dime doors. They're 6 by 12, and she's got a couple of those now too, so they're real cute. So, okay. All right, so next week is Scan and Cut week. We are going to use the roll feeder, and I put a video up so that you can get your roll feeder and like designs. It shows you how to activate those things in the software. And then I've got another video that I made that I'm going to put up probably tonight or tomorrow that shows you how I made the design that we're going to cut out, and I will provide that for all of you. Yes, Marianne, they're on order. They should be here Tuesday, I think, the first class. So yes, but so the video I'm going to put up for the next class will be for the scan and cut class will be me in the software showing you how I made the welcome sign, and I will provide that for you too to cut out, but I wanted you to see how I did it in the software so you know how it works. So I also have a video of that to put up on the group. So okay, all right, so I'll see everybody next week, and I'll make a video for you of putting on the binding. So I'll get that done probably tomorrow. Thanks everybody, have a good night.